Our United Way Spotlight is on Community Food Redistribution Warehouse, and my guest is Brenda Moore, who is the project coordinator. So glad you could come in today.
Thank you so much for asking me, Donna.
And we were just saying, this is the third time that you've given us an update on this project, and it is such a good project, and you should be so proud of it.
We are.
So, tell me what it is again.
So the Community Food Redistribution Warehouse was a dream that started during the pandemic, and it came all together in under a year. And what we have is a warehouse that is 11,000 square feet. It has a great big cooler, it has a freezer, and it has lots of workspace for organizations, food providing in particular, organizations in our community to receive large donations of food. So another feature of it is our loading dock. And the loading dock is key because when those big transport when those big transport trucks go down the 401 with food donations, they always went past Kingston because no food provider had a loading dock that could receive a large donation of food. So now we have those tractor trailers backing up and unloading beautiful food for us.
That, I had never really thought about that. Of course not. These places are small.
Always.
So we're talking about places like Martha's Table, Lunch by George, St. Vincent de Paul.
Absolutely. Lionhearts.
Lionhearts.
Yep,
like,
absolutely.
There's
Loving Spoonful's part of it now
right?
too. Yep.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So then the idea is that the food comes in, and then these organizations, they decide what they want to serve, and then they come, and it's like grocery shopping, only it's to be reused to provide meals for people who need this service.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah.
And that is a relentlessly growing number of individuals and families in our community that are trying desperately to make ends meet, and still not back to full-time job employment because of COVID hours and those kinds of stresses, plus the incredible cost of living increases that we're all noticing. Yeah. So what happens when a food donor gives us good reusable food? Then what we do at the warehouse is we can sometimes we sort it or we package it into smaller serving sizes so that it can go into a kitchen at Martha's Table or Lunch by George and then be used to add to their food that they're serving their clients. Or if it's a great big donation, like 6,000 pounds of squash, then our volunteers can chop it up and put it into vacuum sealed bags and put it in the freezer, so then we can redistribute it through the fall and winter when we don't have as much fresh produce around. So it really is a partnership, and it's about community. And so there are 4 partners now at the warehouse. So it's Lionhearts as the managing partner, and then it's Kingston Community Health Centers, and it's the United Way, and it's Loving Spoonful, and those are the main partners that are in it. And we work together to share the space, share the cutting tables, share the coolers, share everything, so that each organization can use the space to fulfill their own mission. So it's a collaborative space.
And they're not standing there scratching their head saying, okay, we have this food and we need to make a meal, but none of it really goes together. It's brilliant. It really is such a good idea. Now, where does the food come from?
It comes from a variety of sources. It comes from local places like Costco or Cobb's Bread or Little Caesar, and then it comes from the farther away places like Nestle. And we now have developed new relationships with donors, again, because we have the space to be able to handle large donations. And then those donations can go back out to the food providers, and they use them to feed their clients.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's one thing to say, well, eat seasonally. Yeah, good luck with that in February. So you have freezer space, but you also have cold room storage, like the old-fashioned, you know, we always had a cold room in houses back in those days, and kept potatoes and apples and things like that. Is that the sort of thing we're talking about?
Not so much that as walk-in cooler space, like fridge space. And that's really important when you're dealing with perishables, because the food that we are donated is usually not too far off its shelf life. We don't send it out if we wouldn't put it on our own tables. So it's quality food that's going out, but it's not something that can sit around for a week. So if we can get it immediately into cold storage, then we can have the time to get it back processed and back out to food providers and still have it in good quality. So it really extends the life of our donations.
Oh, I can imagine. And just in numbers, you know, at one time, the community needed to provide this many meals, and now it's up to how many meals?
I would say in our community now we're doing about 1,800 meals a day, and that is down from the height of the pandemic, but it is an incredible number still that needs to be provided for each and every day. Yeah.
And it used to be, it was, oh, single men down on their luck. Maybe you didn't have, you know, that seemed to be, but now you're getting young families. And
young families.
Coming in.
Absolutely.
And maybe even 2-3 times a day. And this is the only way they're going to be able to feed those kids, by going to places like Martha's or St. Vincent.
And these are working people.
Yeah.
These are people who are trying to make ends meet with 2 and 3 part-time jobs. These are people who are trying to make ends meet on ODSP, and between rent and food prices and gas prices, if you need to get the gas in the car to get to work, there's not much left over for food.
And I heard they estimate that food prices are going to go up another 7% in the next year.
I just don't, I can't even hardly fathom that, because we are, as food providers, we are all experiencing relentlessly growing numbers. And it really, it's really mind-boggling to think that it's just going to continue to go up and up and up.
Yeah, and I can remember, was it 40 years ago, food banks were, as a temporary measure during the 80s, when interest rates, it was a huge recession, the biggest recession since the Great Depression.
Right.
And so that's when food banks, but it was a temporary measure.
Yes.
And
here we are, how many years later?
40 years later, and we are still more than ever.
Yeah, and we really work hard as food providers to be able to do as much as we can on as little as possible. Not-for-profits are famous for that. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So the idea of a number of agencies coming together under the roof of the warehouse and sharing those resources, it really goes a long way to help all of our missions.
So you've got food that comes in from various manufacturers and plants and so on, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. You know, I'm glad they're doing that, not just dumping it somewhere because they can't sell it. So that's wonderful. But you also could use some cash.
Well, we always could use cash. And the way that the community food redistribution warehouse is structured is that it is just a place. It doesn't have a website, it doesn't have a phone number, and it's not a charity that accepts donations. But those agencies that work under the roof of the community food redistribution warehouse, so Lionhearts and Loving Spoonful and KCHC and the United Way, they are all important, and that's where your donation goes, because they use the space to do their work.
Right, got it. Okay. So United Way is a big one, and that's our spotlight and so on, but the other agencies also equally good at what they do and could use some help over the season. And
absolutely, and I like to think about giving the gift of food.
Yeah.
So if you had a family member that's hard to buy for, you can make a donation in their honor.
Absolutely.
And slip it inside their holiday card.
Absolutely.
That's a great way to help with your shopping, support local, and all the things that we talk about.
And we don't need more stuff.
No, I think probably there are very many of us that have more than enough stuff that we need to deal with, absolutely. You mentioned the United Way, and the community food redistribution warehouse wouldn't have happened without the leadership of the United Way and the City of Kingston. And we are very fortunate in this community that there is an incredible partnership between the City of Kingston and the United Way.
It seems to be.
Yeah.
Seems to be that they work well together.
Very well together.
And manage to accomplish some really great stuff, and the food warehouse being one of them. Thank you so much for coming in today, and thank you for the update. We'll see you again when other big things happen.
I'm happy to do that.
Thanks, Brenda.